So we're back. Sorry for the hiatus. We are going to, God willing, be doing this series again, continuing with the rabbis of the Talmud as we were doing before the summer when we were doing these classes. So again, these are classes about Jewish personalities, rabbis whose impact is felt till today. So in this series, we're focusing right now on the rabbis of the Talmud. And in this week, we're going to be doing Rav Huna. Previously, we've done his teachers, Rav and Shmuel. So you can go back and watch those videos if you want to understand more about his teachers. Um, he was a student of both Rav and Shmuel, who were the foremost rabbis of the first generation of Talmudic rabbis, Amoraim, which are the rabbis of the Talmud, compared to rabbis of the Mishnah, which are called Tanaim, and he was a student of both Rav and Shmuel, and considered mostly of Rav, but he studied by Shmuel as well. So this is second generation of the Amoraim, and one of the stories about him was that at some point, after the passing of Rav, he became the student of he became, I should say, the Rosh Yeshiva, the head of the academy of the Yeshiva of Sura, and built it up to the point where he had 800 students at one point, and that was like the peak of the yeshiva, to the point where the rabbis, just to show how his influence, the rabbis of Israel, which again, generally speaking, the rabbis of Israel were considered closer to the Masorah, closer to the tradition of the Torah, because obviously the Jews who were living in exile in Babylon were considered that they had gone through many trials and tribulations and persecutions. Not that the rabbis of Israel hadn't, but not the same. Obviously, the moving and away from the tradition. All the rabbis of the Mishnah all lived in Israel, so they were considered generally more authoritative. But the exception, as we'll see in the coming videos, many of the rabbis of Babylon end up coming and taking the mantle of Torah. So, kind of give you this kind of anecdote that kind of explains how popular and how important Rav Huna was specifically, and had his influence both in Babylon and Israel, that they said that when his students would get up, they would brush themselves off, and that the dust would cover the sky. And in Israel, they would say, Rav Huna's class lecture has concluded. And the idea, obviously, is not to take the story literally, but the idea was, number one, how many students that he had and how big his influence was, that it even influenced the rabbis of Israel. His background, going to start from the beginning, his background, he was from the family of the Reish Galusa, of the head of the Exilarch family. We don't know how exactly, but apparently he was from this family. So he came from a prominent family, and he grew up, however, with extreme poverty, and to the point where he actually pawned his own belt in order to buy wine for Kiddush. And his teacher, Rav, blessed him with wealth, and eventually he became very wealthy as a farmer, as somebody who worked the land. And he always kept his humility about him, to the point where one time he was carrying a rake and from the field, and one of his students asked if he could help, and he said, well, are you somebody who usually carries a rake? I wouldn't want to undermine your dignity by allowing you to carry a rake. I'm a farmer. This is what I do. So I carry a rake. But for you, I don't know. I don't know if that's what you usually do. If that's the case, if you're somebody who doesn't usually carry a rake, it would undermine your dignity, even though you're just trying to help me as my student. He refused to allow him to carry it. So just kind of somebody who kept, his cool, even though he became one of the great rabbis and extremely wealthy, in his own right. And many rabbis consider themselves small compared to him. And he was also, besides the fact that he led this academy, he also was a tremendous activist. He would go around where he would see buildings that were in decay. And in that time, buildings would routinely fall over, and that was considered extremely dangerous, discussed in the Talmud at length. And the Talmud discussed the laws of how to deal with a building in disrepair. And he would go in the summertime. He would go around and he would tell people this building is going to be demolished, and if somebody didn't have the money to rebuild the house, he would build it at his expense. So that was something, that a public safety concern that he took under his as his responsibility. Another thing that he would do was that he would buy all the vegetables close to Shabbos on Friday. He would send his servant to say, buy up all the vegetables. Why? Because he felt that if he uh, if he would if they would have leftover vegetables, it would discourage the merchants from coming the next week before Shabbos and having a big array, a big um, diverse vegetables and lots of beautiful vegetables to have for people to purchase for Shabbos. So he felt that if there would be left over, they would bring less, or they would bring less variety. So he would have his servants go and purchase everything that was left, and they would just throw it in the river. However, he felt it was important for people to honor Shabbos that there should be a big variety of different vegetables available in the market. Another thing that it was he would do would he would open his doors on Shabbos, and he would invite everybody who needed a place for a meal was welcome to come to his table, no questions asked. So this was something that he did again, part of his activism, that in order to support the Jewish community. Um, he lived a very long life, and he was the Rosh Yeshiva of Surah for over 40 years, or close to 40 years, and really, as we mentioned, built up the yeshiva to become the one of the main academies of Babylon and of the Jewish people. One of his sayings was that if a person is lenient for himself but stringent for other people, he is considered a rasha. He is wicked because you're trying to, if it's something that's truly important or true stringency, you should take it upon yourself and not just put it onto others. He passed away in his 80s in the year 297, and he passed away suddenly. And many of his colleagues consider it what we call a misa nashika, which means a death by kiss, which is what Moses and Aaron had in the Torah, that they both passed away al pi Hashem, as it says, by the mouth of Hashem, which means that they didn't die because their body failed them, but because God took their soul. And this was something unique, and that his colleagues considered that as well. His body was brought to Eretz Yisrael, land of Israel, and he was buried in the cave of Rabbi Chia because they were both spread Torah in their generation. So therefore, they were buried together. His son, Rabbi Bar Rav Huna, was also a great rabbi, as we'll talk in a future video, God willing. And one of the only reason his colleagues said that when they eulogized him, they said the only reason that the divine presence did not rest upon him was because he lived in Babylon. Had he lived in Israel, he would have been essentially a prophet, I guess is the best way of saying it. The Shekhinah, the divine presence, would have rested upon him, and therefore it did not, because he was in Babylon. Babylon was not considered a place holy enough for having divine presence. So we see here how important of a rabbi he was, a very important rabbi. He's quoted in the Talmud numerous times, saying over these important teachings. And somebody that is studied until this day, a very important part of the Masorah of the Jewish tradition. Thank you for watching, and God willing, we'll see you in the next video.